Bonjour, habari za leo. My name is Kevin Mutia.
Solofina Nekesa.
Lauren Arnza.
Ryan Fisher, Professional Officer at ICLEI Africa. On behalf of ICLEI Africa, the African Center for Cities, our future cities, and partners, I'm excited to welcome all of you to the Rise Africa 2021 Action Festival.
Rise Africa has been growing as a platform of thinkers, doers, enablers, committed to inspiring action for sustainable cities.
Rise Africa is about building active networks across academia, government, private sector, civil society, and the arts.
Our entry point is based not on articulating problems followed by proposing solutions, but rather on celebrating our cities as places of innovation and culture, while asking what more we can do to make them sustainable, inclusive, and vibrant.
This festival is hosting 46 sessions over 5 days from across 16 countries in Africa and the world. Every session aims to share new ideas, showcase ongoing actions, and launch new initiatives by bringing participants together to chart a new route forward.
We hope that the festival program will inspire you to commit to one or more specific actions that you or your organizations will take on. As this session closes, you will be redirected to a survey in which you can articulate these actions. We will follow up on these committed actions throughout the year and offer resources, connections, and support. In this way, we are testing the idea that events can galvanize action, and we hope that you will join us in this effort.
Beyond this session, there are many ways to take part in the festival.
Register for further sessions.
Vote for your favorites in the photo competition.
Test your knowledge of African cities from our daily quiz.
Watch a variety of inspiring video provocations.
And listen and dance to the Rise Africa 2021 playlist.
We hope that you will make all attempts to reach out to new people and build lasting connections.
Before we begin, it's important to note that this session is being recorded and that by participating, you are consenting to be recorded. All recordings will be available on the program page after the festival.
Creative expression is vital for creating new futures for our cities. So we invite you to enter this session in the spirit of creativity and dreaming.
When inspired fires fly. We are moving into the city again this morning. Our dreams tucked under our arms and the bags under our eyes overflowing with hope. We are moving this city again out of mourning, cleaning our streams of consciousness with floodlight ideas to illuminate the workings of our inner scope. We've masked our intentions anew. We've strengthened our bones, calcified our resilience, and merged stillness with our minds using breath as the sinew. We continue to forge a dreamscape across an arid land held hostage by reality. We are watering smiles into the cracks in the concrete. Reinventing laughter to sprout and fill the lulls in our conversations. Yes, our windows open towards brick walls, but our eyes are the source of sunlight. We are living temples of light, moving across the cityscapes, mobile street lamps, the reflection of the heavens we rose from.
Hello and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you so much for joining our session today. I'm sure that you can agree with me that the video has been very inspiring on the Rise Africa Festival, and I really do urge all of you to attend the sessions this week. I was lucky enough to listen to a session this morning with really inspirational artists. And I also feel very inspired to be a mover, a shaker, and an enabler here on the African continent. And I hope that you will feel the same after this session and also throughout the program of Rise Africa 2021. I'd like to welcome you to our session today on achieving 100% renewable energy, listening from lessons learned from 100% renewable energy cities, regions, and the 100% renewable cities and regions roadmap project. discussing lessons from concept to implementation. The 100% renewable energy project offers support to national and regional level governments to promote a move towards 100% renewable energy strategies with increased awareness and stakeholder engagement in the countries of Kenya, Indonesia, and Argentina. My name is Tara Caetano, and I'm from ICLEI Africa. I'm a Senior Professional Officer here at ICLEI Africa based in Cape Town, and I'll be co-hosting the session today with my colleague and friend, Dania Petrick, who will also be introducing herself later on through the program. Before we get started, I'd like to go over how you can participate with us during the session, and we would like to make this more of an informal and engaging session, and would really invite interaction from the floor. So you'll see that you have been automatically muted, but please do feel free to post questions or reflections in the chat. And you can also use the Q&A function that you'll find, both of which you'll find in the bottom banner of your Zoom screen. So please feel free to post in any questions. If you have posed any questions to a particular speaker, please also include the name of the speaker that you would like to capture that question from. And then also that Q&A function, you can also do the same to put in any questions that you might have there. We also wanted to inform you that the session is being recorded, and the recording will be shared on the Rise Africa website post this session. We're intending that this will be an hour-long session, but we do have a very packed program, so it might be the case that we run a bit over time. So please do stay with us if you're able to. After the hour, we will continue addressing the questions if need be. In terms of our agenda for the session today, we will start with a fireside discussion with 3 representative officials from counties and national level government in Kenya. And we'll be discussing some barriers and enablers to the transition to renewable energy experienced in Kenya. This will be followed by a reflective session with 4 experts that work across projects and counties in Kenya to support and facilitate the transition to 100% renewable energy in the country. Should we have time, we also will move into a short Q&A session, which will happen between the fireside discussion and the reflective session. So as I mentioned, please do feel free to put in any questions in the chat or in the Q&A box. As a facilitator, and I'm sure my colleague Dania Petrick will do the same, we'd like to apologize in advance for being quite strict facilitators, and we'll need to move quite quickly along through the speakers. So just a little note to apologize for any very strict facilitation through the session. As I mentioned today, the topic that we're going to be exploring is achieving 100% renewable energy in Africa. And these are lessons that are learned from a particular project that is being implemented in Kenya, where we're looking to achieve 100% renewable energy within cities and regions. It's the 100% Renewables Cities and Regions Roadmap project. Before kicking off, I'd like to introduce you to all of our speakers, and we have quite an inspiring list of speakers for the fireside discussion as well as the reflective session that we'll be taking you through today. Our first speaker is Engineer Daniel Okia, who's Chief Officer of Energy and Industrialization in Kisumu County. So joining us from Kisumu in Kenya, and he's also the Acting Chief Officer for Road, Transport and Public Works for Kisumu County, and also works on developing infrastructure at the local level. Our second speaker is Ms. Grace Karanja. She is the acting county director for environment, energy, natural resources, and climate change. Also joining us from Kenya, but from Nakuru County. And the third speaker joining us also from Kenya, but working more at the national level, is our national representative from the Ministry of Energy, Mr. Edwin Omwenga. As Principal Renewable Energy Officer of the Ministry of Energy, Edwin is involved in the least cost power development planning for the country, GIS mapping of renewable energy resources, and provides technical and other capacity building support to county governments and programs focused on renewable energy resources. A very warm welcome to Mr. Edwin. Our first speaker for the reflective session, which will be the second part of the program, is Mr. Nixon Bukachi. Mr. Bukachi joins us from the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority in Kenya. Mr. Bukachi is a national representative on both project implementation team and the National Project Advisory Group for the 100% Renewable Energy Project. We will then be engaging with Mr. Justice Munyoki, who is the project officer at the East African CSOs for Sustainable Energy and Climate Action Projects under Sustainable Environment Development, SASWACH, in Kenya. Next up in our reflective session, we'll be speaking to Ms. Kruti Munot, who is the project manager for Covenant of Mayors in Sub-Saharan Africa, and specifically working on managing the implementation of the program within Kenya. She works with local governments in the region on the development of climate relevant planning, projects, and city partnerships, and will be taking us through her experiences in Kenya, and she is currently joining us from Belgium today. Last but certainly not least is our final speaker for today's session, Mr. Rohit Sen, who heads up the Climate and Energy Action Group at the ICLEI World Secretariat in Bonn, Germany. Mr. Sen is a senior energy expert with over 11 years of professional experience and coordinates and manages all activities and projects related to renewable energy and climate action, guiding subnational governments to achieve climate neutrality. I'm sure I stand with all of you in sending out a very warm welcome to all of our speakers today. We have a very exciting list, as I'm sure you'll agree, of speakers for the session. So welcome to all of you, and thank you for being part of the session. Now for a little interaction from the audience. We'd like to hear from all of you why you think a primary goal of African countries and local governments should be to achieve 100% clean energy. We're posting this question in the chat, so please feel free at any point to put in your response to that question. The question again, why you think a primary goal of African countries and local governments should be achieving 100% clean energy. We look forward to seeing your responses, and we'll be reflecting on them later in the session. So now, without much further ado, I'd like to open the fireside session. And here we're going to be hearing from three of our speakers, Engineer Okya, Ms. Grace Karanja, and Edwin Omwenga. So to kick us off, I'd like to invite Engineer Okya, who's the focal as the focal county for the 100% renewable energy project in Kenya. And in your journey of developing the 100% renewable energy roadmap, what has been some of your challenges, highlights, and what lessons can you share with other counties wanting to transition to 100% renewable energy in Kenya? So this is a question directed to Engineer Okya, and if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself and putting on your video to answer this question. The question again, as the focal county for the 100% renewable energy project in Kenya, and in your journey of developing the 100% renewable energy roadmap, what has been some of your challenges, highlights, and what lessons can you share with other counties wanting to transition to 100% renewable energy? Over to you, Engineer Okia.
Okay, thank you, Tara, for giving me this opportunity to be here at Rise Africa. We've gone through the journey and we are still along the way to develop the roadmap, 100% renewable energy roadmap. However, we've faced a lot of challenges, some of which I'll mention here. In trying to develop initial status report and energy modeling, we realized that we had a lot of data gaps or inadequate data. And I know this is an issue that will maybe affect a number of areas that or cities that will try to get to renewable energy roadmap. At the same time, we realized we had where we are getting this data, some of the sectors are very expensive in terms of what you have to pay in order to get this data. For example, getting wind data from Kenya Meteorological Department. We have had issues of budgetary allocation, which is inadequate. And this has made it quite difficult in trying to support the recommendations by renewable energy interventions by 100% renewable energy. And this has been there from the time of kickoff, which we did in June 2020. Another area that I have to mention, which I know is not only affecting Kisumu, but is affecting the whole world, is that the project started when more or less the same time with the COVID-19 pandemic. This has meant that since the start of the project, we've not had, this also affected our work plans, because initial cases, we had to decide what are we going to do. And it took quite a long time before we had a kickoff meeting. Some of the highlights and lessons that we have learned include realization that there's need to capacity build officers, county officers, and other stakeholders, and in particular in areas of energy efficiency and conservation. We also realized that it is important to set vision statement. Setting vision statement has helped the entire team to maintain our focus and prioritize our agenda during our meetings. Other areas that we realized were very important are involvement of stakeholders, including community members, in decision-making on sustainable energy. We also had to involve individuals from different energy entities, private sectors, NGOs in project implementation team. I think this helped us a lot, especially when it came to data collection. And we've realized there's need for cities and counties and countries to have maintain database on renewable energy sources or options in their areas. Another area that I wanted to mention is that the importance of having various partners implementing various projects in the country, both local, international, and private sector. This we realized enabled us to pick up on a number of areas which we needed assistance. I think those are the few areas I can mention for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Engineer Okia. I can only agree with you there. I mean, I think the setting of vision statements and setting of your goals ex ante really does put your team in a really good stead. And your point on knowledge sharing and in the creation of a database of renewable energy sources is really something interesting, and maybe something that the next panelists can also reflect on in terms of how they are also looking at knowledge sharing and any ways in which they're enacting that. Now to move on to our next speaker, Ms. Grace Karanja from Nakuru County. The question for Grace is, what have been some of your challenges, highlights, and lessons that you can share? Sorry, that was my timer. Lessons that you can share with other counties wanting to transition to 100% renewable energy in Kenya. Over to you, Grace.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you for having me today. And for sure, for us, the challenges would be, for example, Nakuru County is the hub for renewable energy in Kenya, and also the biggest geothermal production in Africa. And with that, as a county, we have various functions that has been mandated to us within the devolved function. And with now the enactment of the Energy Act 2019, it gives us the opportunity, or rather some functions that we are supposed to undertake as a county. And one of them, it being the energy planning. And when it comes to planning, it's a very tense activities. And as counties, you find that we were not all that maybe endorsed with the resources that we'd like to have, so that we can put up the integrated planning in matters energy. And also in the issues of capacity, we have inadequate capacity maybe to our staffs and also the members of the community who will be the consumers of the energy that we generate. Then inadequate technical capacity, if you see the functions that were devolved with from the Ministry of Energy, the officers or the people with the technical know-how are not devolved to the county. So it has been a challenge. And then on the issues of regulatory frameworks, for every function to be able now to introduce other people or undertake such activities, you need to have a legal framework for you to be able to undertake, to be guiding you, and it acts as a roadmap for you to be able to undertake certain activities. And then mechanism and strategies in engaging private sector, for example, has been a challenge. And whatever we can learn maybe from all those aspects is that in our budgetary allocation, energy, for example, receive the minimal amount you can ever, yes, it receive, maybe the allocation is a bit very small, and it's meant to do a lot of activities. So with that one has been the greatest challenge, because if you do not have resources, even your plans will be in futility if you're not able to implement them as per your plans. Now, with the things that you can be able to learn, we have learned that it's good to involve stakeholders' participation and include all sectors in terms of maybe integrating everyone's views to ensure that we have the right information. Then we can do the resource mapping so that we can have a need assessment for us to know what type of maybe energy that we need where, and then we can be able to resource mobilize. The other thing is to ensure that we incorporate and the partners in energy sector. That is our mother ministry, that is Ministry of Energy, which is a key component in guiding counties to have the right regulatory frameworks, and also taking them through the journey of attaining maybe 100% renewable energy. And for now, as a county, have been privileged to undertake that activity. And with the Ministry of with the Ministry of Energy, we are able to be taken through the regulatory frameworks, and also we'll be supported maybe to have the relevant legal framework for us to undertake maybe the functions that we've been mandated towards through the devolved function of government. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Grace, and making my job as a facilitator very easy by coming in before the end of the 5 minutes. And I think that's a really good segue to our next speaker, who is actually working with or for national government. And I think it's useful to hear now from Edwin Omwenga on what are some of these challenges that are also faced at the national level. And as Grace mentioned now in her intervention, there is a lot of work obviously happening between national government and the counties in terms of the work that they're doing in the energy space. But we'd also like to hear from you, Mr. Omwenga, what are some of the challenges faced in terms of transitioning to complete reliance on renewable energy, and what can be done by the national government to support this? And it would be useful to also go into some detail about some of the programs that already exist at the national level. And just to please ask if you wouldn't mind also putting on your video while you're answering the question. Over to you, Mr. Omwenga.
My video is on. Thank you, Ms. Tara, for the elaborate introduction. And I want to say thank you for inviting me to be a panelist in this session today. And greeting to everyone who's present today. I can start off, as you all know, Kenya as a country has an enormous potential for renewable energy with an installed capacity of 2,800 megawatts. The generation mix is approximately 90% renewable. Generation is 90% from renewable energy sources. One of the major challenges has been inadequate funds. As you all know, we with a struggling economy and the negative impacts of on the economy caused by COVID-19. Funds to implement renewable energies has been something that has been a challenge. But the national government can support this by enhancing renewable energy technology integration in line with worldwide falling costs, ensuring that variable renewable energy resources in the country are optimally utilized for power generation. This is through we're doing this through revised FIT framework, the feed-in tariff framework, and the anticipated energy auctions, both of which are at advanced stages of development for approval. Also, another way to secure funds is to encourage the private sector participation in power generation through the feed-in tariff framework, energy auctions, and PPPs, which is the public-private partnership frameworks. Okay, the second challenge has been the regulatory framework, as has been earlier stated. In the recent past, there has been lack of regulatory framework and policies that has hindered the uptake of renewable energy. But with the enactment of the Energy Act, number 1 of 2019, that came effect in March 2019, has introduced a set of reforms to improve the energy sector landscape that will definitely ensure development, publishing, and review energy plans in respect to the renewable energy and electricity, so as to ensure delivery of reliable energy services at least cost. This is through the Integrated National Energy Plan, which is the energy plan from different county energy plans that is going to inform the sector. Also development of a regulatory framework to operationalize the act. The third challenge being the intermittent nature of variable renewable energy, especially wind and solar, has been a challenge. The intermittency creates a grid instability, and as usually it's not easy to plan for dispatch for the VREs, which in turn may require grid and infrastructure upgrade. To cure this, the Ministry of Energy is working with GIZ on how we can make the grid ready for VRE through better weather forecasting, storage studies for power system, and reactive power compensation. As we carry out our planning, we have distributed the VRE generation to years where they will be required to minimize energy curtailment. The fourth challenge that I picked out is the frail collaboration, and I say frail, quote unquote, frail collaboration between the government and academia in terms of research. And when I talk about research, is the research that leads to tangible projects, ideas, and data that can influence policy. Research that can lead to some of these products, renewable energy products that the country consumes or imports to be manufactured locally. The government, to cure this, the government should create a strong link with academia and invest in research in collaboration with our development partners. As the government has been able to work with some of the local universities, such as Strathmore, on some of the renewable energy projects, and also there's an MOU to be signed with the Ministry of Energy and the University of Nairobi that proposes the expansion or upgrading of the current test capacity of the University of Nairobi Lighting Laboratory to able to test DC off-grid solar systems with PV modules up to 300 watt peak. Thank you, Tara.
Great, thank you so much, Edwin. My alarm's also going to go off. Thank you so much to my speakers who've been really good with their time management today. And coming from a country such as South Africa, also with the introduction of a lot of VREs, I can also speak to the complexity that it does bring in terms of your grid and managing the balancing of your grid. So I think there, Mr. Edwin speaking to a lot of the complexities of adding renewable energy onto the grid. The second point there, which I thought was quite powerful and something that also was mentioned before by Grace, was around the regulatory framework and the importance of a regulatory framework within government, really enabling or facilitating growth in sectors such as renewable energy. Also sharing or incentivizing the private sector to invest in these resources. So now we are going to move to the rapid fire Q&A session, so the questions and answers session. Thank you to all of you for posting your responses first to the polls. So maybe just to reflect a bit on that, I see quite a lot of mention on, or first of all, to say that most people or everyone that I've seen on the chat has definitely agreed with that question about or the importance of 100% renewable energy being a primary goal of countries and local governments, and the attributing the benefit of renewable energy on the or having a positive benefit on the environment, the reduction of renewable energy, and also linking it to how it then, because of the cost element and the cost of renewable energy being less and continuing to drop as compared to more conventional power sources, the impact there is then also reduced cost for consumers, which is also a benefit to those receiving the power. So in terms of questions, I'd like to pick up one from the floor that came in. For counties to successfully transition to complete reliance on renewable energy, most of the efforts, resources, and funds will have to come from the private sector. How has the county worked with private sector to enhance access to energy from renewable sources, and what has been done and what is being planned? So maybe that question going to our first speaker, Engineer Akia. How has your county responded to this, and how is the county working with private sector?
Okay, thank you, Tara. Actually, transitioning to renewable energy is not quite easy. As has been mentioned earlier, funding is a major issue, especially to counties. And now that we have COVID-19, which has affected source revenues, on-source revenues, and even the national cake that is given to the counties. However, we have, as a county, tried to create conducive environments for investors, for the private sectors that would join us in implementing implementing renewable energy. Most of it has been done in terms of policy interventions for investments by private sectors. And we are giving emphasis on clean energy production, supporting domestic applications, which are largely dominated by biomass, and also ensuring that we have favorable regulatory framework. For example, now, enactment of Energy Act 2019, our country is working to ensure that we domesticate the policy and legal framework. And this financial year, we are doing that exactly. Apart from other works that are going on, which include Climate Change Act. So we are doing this, and we hope the frameworks are going to enable private sector come in. We are also promoting industrialization, and SME is focusing on energy production. Same, we are also giving priority on modern energy solutions with energy efficiency, clean energy, and renewable energy. We are also collaborating a lot and having partnership with private sector in awareness creation programs, renewable energy technologies. I don't know a number of areas.
Sorry, Engineer, I'm losing sound there. I don't know if you're a bit further from your mic.
Okay.
Thank you.
We realize that we are doing a lot of collaboration and partnership with private sectors and awareness creation programs. I'm trying to say that I don't know about other counties, but Kisumu per se, people are not very clear on, or even when we are doing public participation, issues of renewable energy don't come out very clearly. And it is forcing those who are there to get it from the other side of the coin. It doesn't come out very clearly for support. So this is what we are taking in collaboration with partners to ensure that awareness creation is done. We are also encouraging diversification of energy sources and avoiding over-reliance on conventional sources, especially petroleum products. Like was mentioned by Edwin, we are partnering a lot and encouraging innovation and research on clean energy technologies and working closely with the research institutions We're working closely with the universities around these areas, Maseno being one of them, Bondo University being one of them. So we are trying to look at all these areas to see that there is uptake of renewable energy. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Engineer. I think that's so important to not only involve stakeholders right from the beginning of the process, but to also think of this whole society approach and the role that everyone is playing within this problem of moving towards 100% renewable energy. I'd like to see if we can have any quick reflections from Grace and on any opportunities within your county that have been explored by the private sector and development partners. If you want to spend maybe up to a minute there just explaining some of the context from your county, Grace.
Thank you so much. In Nakuru County, we have various opportunities in regard to renewable energy. One of it being maybe exploration in terms of solar energy, whereby with partnership with one of the flower farm, they have been able to establish a very big plant, and which is they are able to complement whatever electricity they were being reliant of. Now they can be able to utilize that solar energy in drying and also in their greenhouses. And we have been receiving various maybe investment proposals on energy. That's to be precise, the one on solar energy. And we are looking at the models in which we can be able to bring the investors on board. There's also another opportunity. We know we are the greatest generators of geothermal energy, and we are incorporating our private sector through investing in maybe drilling, development, and also maybe reticulation of energy to the off-grid people. And then they can be able to use also the resultant of that energy, one of it being steam. There is a great opportunity whereby the private sector can invest maybe in tapping the steam to be able to use in drying of agricultural crops, heating, and also pasteurization of milk. Those are the opportunities that are at hand, and they can be explored even now. There are several farms that have shown interest for that matter, and they are working with our geothermal development company to ensure that they are put on board to be able to assist the government, because we know for sure the investment in the energy sector is very intensive. And when we bring on board the private sector, we are able now to generate more capacities of energy, and then we can be able now to reticulate the people who have not been able to access energy. At the same time, if we are able to explore that channel, we can be able now to have a subsidized fees on matters energy for the people who are maybe industrialization. And also there's another opportunity. We are coming up with an industrial park in Naivasha, that is Nakuru County on one of our municipalities. And that one we are targeting more investors to come in. And the source of energy that we are targeting is the one coming from our Orkale, that is our greatest geothermal production. So we are welcoming partners and investors to invest in that industrial park, whereby you come and invest, and then you can be able to supply maybe energy at low cost for the production and also introduction of other green energy like solar to complement the electricity. So those are the major investment opportunity currently happening, and there still can bring more investors to come and invest in that sector. There's also another one that is not explored.
Sorry, Grace.
Yes.
Sorry, Grace, to cut in there. Apologies, just in terms of timekeeping. I'd like to stop you there. Thank you for that intervention. Maybe to move on to Edwin. just a question for you on if you could share your thoughts on how the transition to 100% renewable energy economy as espoused in the Kenya's Vision 2030 might positively impact employment and economic growth, energy bills, electricity reliability, and accessibility for rural and farming communities in Kenya. This is also feeding into some of what Grace was saying, but maybe just a quick some quick thoughts from your side on that.
Okay, thank you, Tara. As you all know, Vision 2030 has 3 pillars, with the social, political, and economic. On the economic part, the country aims to be a middle-income economy by 2030. I don't know whether we are still on course, but it's our hope that we'll achieve that. On the economic side, renewable energy, the economic benefits of renewable energy are generation of employment, improvement of economic performance, trigger of private investment, energy security, and stimulate technology changes, as Grace has mentioned, on how they're doing their drying and pasteurization of milk. Also, in terms of energy stability, we hope to, through our REIT, to ensure development and publishing of review of energy plans that ensure energy stability. On electricity bills, as you all know, the technology is becoming cheaper day by day. And we hope that in time, this will be reflective in our bills. Our bills in future, they'll be much lower to compare to what people are paying today. And on agriculture, we hope that we can create a synergy between renewable energy and agriculture, where also in part to stimulate technology change, where farmers depend on renewable energy to do their irrigation and increase their production. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, that would be a really good synergy to also explore, and maybe with that, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Ms. Dania Petrick, who will take us through the second part of this program. Over to you and over to the reflective session.
Great, thank you so much, Tara. I hope everyone can hear me. Hi everyone, my name is Dania Petrick. I'm a professional officer at ICLEI Africa in Cape Town, South Africa, and I'm also responsible for the multi-level governance components of the 100% RE project. So I've been working closely with all our panelists and speakers today. So I just want to say, firstly, thank you to our local and national counterparts for the Fireside Session. That was extremely informative. And I'd like to now welcome our panel of experts, Mr. Nixon Bukachi from EPRA, Mr. Justice Manyoki from SUSTWatch, Ms. Kruti Manot from GIZ, and Mr. Rohit Sen from the ICLEI World Secretariat. All of our panelists have been involved in the 100% RE project currently being implemented in Kenya, and they all have their own experience in being a part of Kenya's energy transition. We'd like to take a few moments for the next part of this webinar session to reflect a bit on what we've heard, and also discuss your own experiences and share lessons with other countries who are following a similar transition to 100% RE. So Mr. Nixon Bukachi, let's start with you first. If you don't mind, I'll ask you a question, and then if you can put your video and sound on. So Nixon, since 1996 and the New Energy Act was passed in 2019, which has already been mentioned, there have been continued reforms taking place in the power sector in Kenya. The country also has a target of achieving universal electricity access by 2022, which is already next year. And that's been included in the 2018 Kenya National Electrification Strategy, or CNES. Mainly, the main approach being through grid densification, intensification, and expansion, as well as off-grid solutions. So in terms of policy and regulation, what has been your experience at IPRA in terms of the main enablers of achieving these targets in the policy environment? And you can give us some examples, so you can talk us through how these regulatory reforms have enabled, for example, independent power producers to access the energy market and support such targets. Nixon, over to you.
Thank you for the opportunity, and also thank you for the question. Hope you can be able to hear me clearly. So basically, as you have correctly mentioned, over the years, the Kenyan electricity subsector has been able to undergo quite a number of transitions. And as I've mentioned, I think before 1996, we had what we'd call the Electricity Act of 1997. It's one of the 1999. It's one of the provisions that indeed provided for the need to do unbundling of the Kenyan electricity subsector. And basically, the reason for unbundling, or the reasons why unbundling became an issue, is because we thought that having various players contribute towards different market segments would accelerate the growth in the generation capacity and also in the expansion of the transmission and the distribution network, and is also strongly informed by a cessation of paper that was done in 2004, which then provided a basis for the establishment of an independent regulator, which was actualized in 2006 through the Energy Act of 2006. And the Act really did create different players in the sector who directly contributed towards the growth of renewable energy. And one of the key players that I would single out would be the Geothermal Development Company that was established by the government to spearhead the exploration and development of geothermal wells. And through the activities, because of course, when you're looking at geothermal as a resource, it's usually very expensive to do exploration. So the coming in of GDC then did hive this cost from the investors. So investors in this case, meaning the Kenya Generating Company that was created through the unbundling, and also the private investors that had interest in the development of the renewable energy sector in Kenya. So by being able to do exploration and develop these wells in advance before inviting competition in the development, in the generation of the electricity using the identified resource, this played a key role in ensuring that we have what we're having at the moment. And maybe as I finish, the other aspect would be what the representative from the ministry already mentioned about the feed-in tariff policy that provided the initial tariffs that developers would want to use when they want to develop various technologies. I don't know if I should continue or...
We would love to hear some more from you, but we are a bit short on time. So I'm going to move across to our next speaker. Thank you so much, Nixon. So yeah, just speaking into the private sector being part of the solution and also being part of the foundation for establishing a kind of regulatory environment is really important. So as we all know, regulatory, financial and human resources are crucial to enable the transition to renewable energy. So Justice, I'm going to come to you now. As someone who's worked closely at community level through representative groups such as SuchWatch, can you explain the role of civil society in contributing to 100% RE transitions?
Thank you, Dania, for this opportunity. Just to share some of the roles of civil society organization out of the experience that I have working closely with the local communities. So I would just want to say that the CSOs have a role to play in terms of development of the scenarios, the renewable energy scenarios, and also planning for the grids. And therefore, this is one of the key roles of the civil societies. It is a duty to think and be able to prepare the scenarios that will lead to 100% renewables. Again, another role of civil societies, it includes the awareness creation and also the public education on what 100% renewables are. And therefore, this is again another key role that CSOs need to participate in. I would also want to add that it is also another role for the civil society also to lead in research, maybe working in partnership with academia in order for us to have the knowledge, even be able to identify the innovations that are required in order for us to be able to transit to 100% renewables. Civil societies also have a role in advocacy on achievement of friendly policies and regulations, which will support these steps towards 100% renewables. Again, civil societies have a role in resource mobilization. It is our duty to make sure that we fundraise, we mobilize for resources that will enable us be able to achieve the goal of 100% renewables. Capacity building cannot be left behind. It is also our duty of civil society to build capacities for the communities, for national government officials, for county government officials, also for private sectors, because we all need to work in partnership on this. Yeah, so I think those are some of the roles that I've mentioned. I know we have many other roles, but just to mention those few. Back to you, Danny.
Thank you so much, Justice. It's very interesting how you speak about civil society being advocates as part of the regulatory environment. So just moving on in terms of a follow-up question to you, Justice, in your experience, what have been some of the enablers and barriers that civil society do experience in supporting these local level energy transitions? Can you expand a little bit on not just their role, but also what they've experienced at the local level?
Okay, thank you so much. Once again, Dania, just to share some of the enablers sort of the experience, I would just want to start by mentioning the existing legal frameworks that as a country we have, and that all the things that we've been able to do based and referenced from these legal frameworks that are existing. Again, I would also want to mention that also the development plans and also the strategies that the country has have also been an enabler for that, for us in these guiding us towards even development of the scenarios that will lead us to 100% renewables. I can also mention the partnerships with both the CSOs, the national government, especially the Minister of Energy, Minister of Environment, Minister of Planning, and other relevant ministries. This has been tremendous, and we appreciate also at the county level the partnerships that the CSOs have. I can also mention the potential that this country has on the potential that this country has on renewable energy sources. Those are some of the enablers that we can embrace on. And just to mention some of the barriers, because this is just normal, I would just want to mention quickly that inadequate capacity in terms of technical skills, this is a challenge even at the local level. And I would also mention about the limited awareness on the renewable energy sources at the local level. These are very key things that needs to be looked into. I can also mention on some political goodwill. Sometimes we lack this political goodwill, and therefore it's a challenge because they are the key decision makers on some of the proposals that we make. Therefore, that is a barrier as well. Inadequate funds or resources, it's also a barrier that many of my colleagues have also mentioned. We have also at some of the counties that lack energy policies and legislation. This I mentioned as also a barrier. And back to you, Daniel. Thanks.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Justice. It's so interesting to hear from your perspective in terms of your experience. Kruti, I'm now coming to you, linked to what has been shared. As part of GIZ and a key development partner in Kenya, what has been your experience of working in the country in terms of the enablers such as financial and human resources and mandates that the counties in Kenya can take advantage of to enable their transition to RE? Can you expand a little bit about GIZ's role and the access to resources that are available to counties?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Tanya, for that question. I think our experience, especially as GIZ and the project that I work with, which is the Covenant of Mayors, has been working quite closely with counties in Kenya. So as GIZ working with Nakuru, so Grace's team in developing the climate sustainable energy access and climate action plan. And I think the few lessons learned or the few kind of enablers that have been that we have observed in Kenya is one just on the mandates. So with the new energy law, Energy Act, which has been mentioned a few times already, the counties already have a lot of responsibilities in matters of energy. Of course, first it starts with energy planning. So all of the processes that go into a planning process they're quite demanding technically, but already having that mandate and having a framework that comes from the national level to the counties on how they're supposed to report on matters of energy at the county level, I think already helps a lot for counties to have a head start on which direction to look in terms of going towards renewable energy. The second, I think I would say, is also on vertical cooperation. So again, even when you're planning from the bottom up with the counties, it's very important to involve the national level at each step of the way. And in general, I think working with the counties in Kenya, it's really interesting to see all of the different initiatives coming in terms of, for example, financial enablers. So there is the Kenya County Climate Change Fund, which several counties, including Nakuru, have set up, which dedicates a certain amount of their budgets to specifically addressing climate change related issues. And of course, energy is crucial in addressing climate change. So that's one part of it, although the fund tackles more than just energy. So I think, again, that's another enabling factor. And so, yeah, in general, I think the legal mandates was my main point, was around the planning mandates, but also I think counties are required to look into energy funds and energy efficiency, which is, again, comes down to a county competency, which is also a big enabling factor for moving towards renewable energy.
Thanks so much, Kriti. It's very interesting to hear how those are taking place at local level, and also this aspect of vertical integration and multi-level governance is so important, and we've realized that across our work in Africa. So linking to what Kriti has shared, Rohit, I'm coming to you now to speak about the financing opportunities that might be available for counties in Kenya. So for example, the TAP and other funding opportunities from a global perspective. So can you chat to us about some of these financing mechanisms available from global, national, down to local level for the country? Over to you, Rohit.
Thanks a lot, Tanya. I mean, I've heard that a lot of speakers have talked about the issue with access to funding. I mean, I am of the opinion, and from where I see that funding is available, is that the funds are in the pocket of the investors and not being invested. I think apart from looking at access to funding, what we should also focus with our projects under the 100% renewables transition, that how to make them more attractive to various investments. On that, I would also say that TAP is one source, but we must look at other sources available, other opportunities, various project preparation facilities or financial institutes, whether through IRENA, whether through IFC or AFC, etc. I think, in my opinion, blended finance should be the key approach in this case. A mix between debt, equity, and grant funding for projects at project level, implementing projects, is something that we should definitely look at. Something very interesting that one can do at county level or city or region level is also look at crowdfunding, something that can be done at international level or also locally at national level. And this is something where we need to see, if you do a financial analysis, that the investment should be a critical mix of local currency and the Forex. I think also the grant funding from various financial institutes should also be restructured in such a way that there are more there's more public money available for de-risking investments, so reducing the perceived risk of private investors. Apart from that, what I see locally for cities and regions or counties in this case, they can see how to innovate and use land assets at their end, and maybe generate income through leasing or renting land for other projects and activities, and then subsidize that or redirect those fundings towards renewable energy investment. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Rohit. Sure, all our speakers are so on point in terms of time. It's really interesting to hear about the different aspects. And I'm going to come back to Kriti now for a response. So Kriti, in light of what Rohit has just shared, can you provide a brief overview of some of the ongoing support provided to counties in Kenya that have helped enable a transition to 100% RE, and give any examples of success stories that you've experienced, and also mention where some improvements might be needed in terms of the environment or different mechanisms? Go for it.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I think in terms of ongoing support, there's many programs ongoing on renewable energy in Kenya. In fact, if you look at the landscape of climate finance in Kenya, which was recently published, actually most of the funding flows to renewable energy or energy programs in Kenya from international finance sources. So I do agree with Rohit that there is a lot of finance available. Maybe it's just not channeled in the right places at the end of the day. I think in terms of some of the other initiatives, so there is the Covenant of Mayors, which I've mentioned, which is working on climate and energy planning, but also supporting bankable project development. But there are a number of other initiatives, including the COSAP program, which is for off-grid solar and energy access. There is also a capacity development program that is coming up. I think it just recently started, which is aiming to sensitize counties on energy planning. So those are some of some of the ones that are working with counties. There's also the Sustainable Urban Economic Development Program, which focuses more on economic development, but also includes a component of energy and renewable energy. In terms of success stories and improvements, I think one of my favorite success story from Kenya is actually what I already mentioned, was the setting up of the Climate Change Fund. Again, it's more climate, so not restricted to energy, but I think that's quite remarkable in terms of innovative financing methods. And also, I think all of the counties that are doing or starting to do energy planning, including Nakuru, including Kisumu, I think those will become very soon success stories for other counties in Kenya. I think in terms of improvements or where more efforts could be put in is actually making the counties and the county staff more aware or sensitizing them on the role of the county in matters of renewable energy. Because I think the mandates are often confused between what the national government or the national government agencies are supposed to do versus what exactly is the county's role in, say, is it energy planning? Is it promoting projects? Is it developing projects? And I think so there can be a lot more sensitization and also building capacities at the county level, and also exchanging between counties. So the counties that are already working on these topics to be able to share that with other counties who may not have that experience. Thanks.
It's fantastic. Thank you so much, Kriti. Yeah, and just on that topic, I'm coming back to the national regulatory environments again. So Nixon, back to you. Can you share a little bit about EPRA, how EPRA in particular is working with other state entities to enable the transition to renewable energy? So maybe speak about the role that REREC plays, or the Ministry of Energy and Treasury, and how they integrate with EPRA, and use some examples of your own work. Nixon, over to you.
Okay, thank you. I think at EPRA's regulatory body, we are basically looking at providing a regulatory framework that is promoting the use of renewable energy technologies at national and also at county levels. So at the moment, for instance, we have been working on the mini grid regulations, which I think directly would impact on electrification in the off-grid areas, and also the aspect where developers could come in and develop mini grids even in the to supply given municipalities or given counties within given jurisdictions. Another example would be working on the net metering regulations that then encouraging more people to become prosumers, not necessarily consumers. So with this, we're able to encourage various developers and players in the market to become prosumers and contribute towards the realization of the renewable energy footprint in the country that we are targeting. That is by 2050, having that our network is being run by renewable energy in full. So aspects of capacity, having regulations that encourage various players to come in, and also even pushing for benefits from the National Treasury. We work very closely with the Ministry of Energy, the sector associations, the county governments to push a treasury to give the public, the developers incentives that would encourage them to take up more renewable energy technologies. And an example would be previously, before the current financial year, we had VAT's zero rating on most of the infrastructure that is used to develop renewable energy projects. It was introduced in the current financial year. I think we have been able to discuss with the National Treasury and other sector players, and we see that in the coming financial year in the proposed bill that this is going to be zero rated again, which is a good incentive to encourage more players to participate in the development of renewable energy technologies. And lastly, just to close on REREC. So REREC being a government agency, then they are mandated to develop renewable energy technologies, to develop energy centers that will work as demonstration centers in various counties and cities, which then through which the communities are able to learn about the developments in renewable energy. They're also significantly involved in the realization of the Kenya Off-Grid Solar Access Project that has already been mentioned, where they've been installing solar water pumping systems, solar home systems, solar street lighting in public institutions, and also developing mini grids in the various parts of the country. So working with these various stakeholders and also discussing with them on the various challenges, developing relevant regulatory frameworks, then through that we've been able to promote the development of the various renewable energy technologies in the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Nixon. It sounds like Kenya is definitely on the right track. And last but not least, I'm going to hand over to Rohit again to speak about some of the experiences in Indonesia and Argentina, which are two of the other focus countries for the 100% RE project. So Rohit, can you tell us a bit about the 100% RE project as a global project and what some of the pertinent lessons are from these other two countries, specifically with regards to the enablers and barriers that they've faced in implementation of 100% RE. And we're hopeful that these can be used as lessons for Kenya and other African countries. Rohit, over to you.
Yep. Thanks, Dania. And you've already introduced the project. So, I'll briefly, there are many points that I could share here and discuss them in detail, but looking at the time, I'll be very brief and pick up some key points that I thought could be interesting with the interests of the counties from Kenya and Kenya at a national level as well. So for Argentina, for example, when we were working in the deep dive city of Avellaneda, we realized that the government was already investing and planning a project for implementation for gas pipeline, and that is for moving, and that is for cooking. So moving from LPG cylinders supply to CNG gas pipeline, and that was something as a hurdle for us because we wanted to move to 100% renewable status in all sectors, including cooking. We later realized while doing the energy modeling that there is enough bioresource or bio-based gas that can be supplied through these existing infrastructure or to be built infrastructure to the residents of Avellaneda. So this is something that we try to use an existing infrastructure or a planned infrastructure into something that would also foster the transition. So something like this you can look at in different aspects in Kenya or the counties where something is already planned or something is being executed. How can we reuse or for the sector for 100% renewables? Apart from that, what I also noticed that in Argentina, we are working with all 3 cities from the country, and on all the 3 cities from their end, because we have deep dive city and 2 networking cities. But in this case, all the 3 cities are highly motivated and working from their end to push forward with the 100% renewables transition, working on data collection, working on modeling, and working on how to build the roadmap towards 100% renewables. And this creates a very strong message for the national level to include such ambitious plans and get the country moving towards 100% renewables and overlooking at how to achieve net zero carbon emissions. From Indonesia, something that strangely happened, that they already had a renewable energy target of 50%, the West Nusa Tenggara province that we are working on under the project. Indonesia as a country overall has 30% renewables in the energy mix as a target. But when we saw the energy modeling, the government of West Nusa Tenggara decided to be more ambitious and move the target from 50% to 100% in all sectors, achieving 100% renewables by 2050. So this was something positive, and the enablers were the resources that were available, the profit and the benefit that they make while transitioning towards renewables. Something that came up as a challenge, or I won't say hurdle, but came as a challenge, was how to balance political interests. Now, Indonesia has an abundant supply or resource of geothermal. Unfortunately, when we did the energy modeling, which is based on techno-economical analysis and many other factors, geothermal was not selected for whatever reasons, being expensive or technology not being matured in the local area or in the country. But somehow the political interest was to have geothermal in the mix of scenarios for the energy pathways that want to be taken to achieve 100% renewables, and we had to do that and see how this can be balanced. So again, the point here is, and the lesson learned is that keeping the techno-economic factors in mind, keeping the political interest in mind, how do you balance your pathways and scenarios to transition towards 100% renewables is something then also the Kenyan counties can look at, because what decision you take today might become very difficult tomorrow. So to keep it successfully achievable, we should look at the balance part as well. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Rohit. That's great. And what a great way to end our session today with such a positive message about the gains that have been made across different countries in a move towards renewable energy. I know we've gone over time. We have been given extra time, but I just want to thank you all for staying and hearing our fantastic speakers today. And thank you so much to all our panelists and speakers for offering your incredible insights. And to our audience, I hope that this has been helpful in applying to your own journey towards 100% renewable. And yeah, just to say on behalf of ICLEI Africa and our presenters, thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day, and don't forget to check out the rest of the Rise Africa sessions, and we'll post the link in the chat now. So if you would like to sign up for any more of the sessions happening this week, they're very vibrant, very engaging and exciting, and we look forward to hosting you and seeing you again. Thank you again to all our speakers, and enjoy the rest of your day.